All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is a YouTube exclusive here in the circle, powered by good friends at StreamYard. And I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but Jocelyn Alo is going to be playing in Athletes Unlimited this summer. And who can we have on the show to talk about? Oh, yeah, senior reporter for Athletes Unlimited in front of the podcast, Savanna Collins. Safe to say it's been a very busy couple of days for you and the AU team.
Yes, this week and especially Wednesday was so anticipated for AU. I know that year to year, the crew that puts together the roster, the player executive committee, and our director of sport just want to take things to another level, have the best of the best play in our league. And I don't think that could be complete without Jocelyn Alo. And so signing her and being able to announce that to the world in Wichita, having her at Wichita State, and just really kind of introducing her as not only an OKC Spark player, but an AU player too, was huge. So huge.
I think, and of course, the collaboration between the OKC Spark and Athletes Unlimited playing a series of games in Oklahoma City is kind of the continuation of that partnership with Sherry Kemp, Dr. Tina Floyd, and just from what you've been privy to during the last few weeks, what led us to get to where we are right now with probably the most popular player in our sport now being a part of the Athletes Unlimited fold, being an AUX?
Totally. I think that's always a goal of AU when they set the season dates and the location and when we're playing and where we're playing. The person and people they think about the most is how does this work for our players? The ones that are playing in Japan or playing on their national teams this summer or want to play in other leagues. Like, how do we set it up to where players can play the most amount of softball that they want to all year long? And I know that is always the number one goal. And so, going into this summer, looking at how do we have athletes who play, with the OKC Spark be able to play with us too? Because there's a huge, talent group on that team. Like, that team is so stacked when you look through the roster. And so, that was a big part of how do we set this up so that people can do both, represent both, and to have that announcement roll out with Jocelyn Alo. And there are more coming. There are more newcomers and signees in the next coming weeks of athletes who have not played with Athletes Unlimited before who will be announced. And I just love that we're there, and I feel it. And I see it on Twitter. I see it on Instagram of people being like, why are there so many leagues? Why can't people play both? And, there's a lot that goes on into athletes being able to play in every league and have every opportunity. But I like where we're at right now. Not only, having these players be able to play in both, but also us going to Oklahoma City. I'm so pumped to do that series there for those two games on July 12th and July 13th. It's going to take AU to a whole new audience. It's going to take those athletes to a whole new location, and to have an atmosphere where it's, that team base that we haven't had a lot of. This is, your home team versus their home team. That is so fun. So being able to do that with OKC, I think, is so huge. Having their support, their collaborations in the post, this isn't a, Jocelyn Alo left. Like, no, she said it best. She's like, I'm collaborative. I'm doing both. And I think that is exactly what pro softball needs.
I've been kind of saying that for like ever since you've known me, Savanna, I've been saying that for the longest time. We need to be more collaborative and bringing pro softball together to kind of make everybody succeed. And this is kind of a huge step in that direction. And with AUX, the names are already signed. Jesse Warren, who's the AUX and AU Champ Season Defensive Player of the Year. Alyssa Denham, who was second place twice, first player ever to do that in AU Champ Series history. You got Morgan Zirkle. Oh, by the way, Sydney McKinney, who we're playing at our old home park in Wichita doing AUX. And then, so you already have the athletes there, and then you put the cherry on the sundae with Jocelyn Alo. Yeah. Just those names alone makes it worth it for fans to kind of go out to Wichita and watch what you got building for AUX starting on June 10th.
Totally. And I think another part about it too is, Sydney McKinney's returning home to Wichita State, which I'm so excited for that, to see the way in Wichita that like the Shockers just like embrace her and love her, because you see it online and I've seen it in just how they support anything about her, but seeing it in person I think takes it to another level. But I think Wichita, to me, and just that area geographically, is what is really leading up a lot of excitement about AUX, because we're stepping into a new market. Rosemont has been and will be AU's home. And if you kind of go even further back to that, it's been the home of pro softball for such a long time with the Chicago Bandits. So that audience and town and area is so established. Like, people know when they want to see pro softball, you go to Rosemont in the summer. And then, we took it on the road to San Diego. Then we did both in Rosemont, and now we're taking AUX somewhere else. To me, I think that's really exciting to step into a whole, new part of the country, also being driving distance from Oklahoma, and just being in a new area to take the AU product and the talent of these players to a different audience, because I know for me, growing up in Florida, like, I had never been to pro softball games. I remember meeting my first pro softball player. It was Jenny Finch, and just being in awe, but not to where it was like growing up an hour from Tropicana Field and going to the Rays and getting to watch Rays games all growing up. Like, it just wasn't that accessible. It wasn't that close. So being able to go to a new location creates that for people. And I'm so excited about that, just to see that momentum pick up in a new place with new audiences.
And someone who has seen a lot of games in Wichita State, I think there'll be a perfect fit between AU and Wichita, Kansas. They love their Shockers, and I got a pretty good feeling that you're going to have a very excited fan base that's going to welcome this exciting brand of pro softball with open arms. The biggest thing I'm kind of watching and following along with this, I saw the announcement along with Alo, the broadcast schedule, and I'm looking at the schedule. I'm like, there's no ESPN Plus. Everything for the first time is going to be on linear television, ESPNU, ESPN2. And I know you're just as excited for that aspect of it as much as having these athletes being a part of AUX this summer in Wichita.
Honestly, my favorite thing in the world to be able to do is for someone to say, how do I watch? And just go flip the ESPN. Like, when it's that simple, not here's the link, log in here, pay $5.99 on this site you've never been on, and that's going to charge you.
Yeah.
Like, we've all been there. We've all been there for softball fans of hunting down to watch a game. It has, it drives you crazy. And so at AUX, to be able to say all 18 games are either on ESPNU or ESPN2, that is just huge. And for fans, we love it because it's convenient. But I think there's another group that it reaches, in the summer, where it is kind of a lull, where there aren't a lot of, sports on TV, to be able to be flipping and see softball. And people know now, if they see softball on TV, they're going to watch something fun. And to know that as people are flipping, through ESPN2, through ESPNU, and they see softball, they'll stop. And I think you miss out on drawing in the casual softball fan or the just college softball fan when you're not on linear TV. And it's so, so important for the sport. I love the way that what it does for the players, like we've talked about that, like they feel it when they're on that level of TV. It's just different. And it's also what they're accustomed to from college. So many of them played on the biggest stages, throughout their careers, and that should be the case for their pro career too. And so that really, really pumps me up, because there are going to be so many people who can't make it out to Wichita, but knowing it's that easy for them to tune in and watch every game throughout AUX, we couldn't ask for better.
And not only that, you got the momentum of the Women's College World Series kind of serving as a lead up to AUX. So you get that extra boost of those fans who still have that softball fix after a national champion is crowned in Oklahoma City. And here you are a couple of days later. Hey, we got your fix right here with AUX, 3 weeks. Let's get going. So I'm sure that's going to add even more viewers, more of the casual viewer as well, to what you're building this summer.
Totally. Yeah. And that's no mistake. And I know so many of us in the softball world have talked about it for so long. Like, how do you get the momentum from college to transition to pro? And I believe it's, timing, access, TV, and signing the biggest stars from that stage. And so right now it kind of feels like AUX has this perfect little combination of all of it. And I think we see it in other sports. Like, we watch the way that women's college basketball explodes. That translates to the WNBA. And I don't think softball will be an exception to that. So being able to ride that momentum, ride that conversation, and there's so many ties to that stage, whether that's, all our AU players who are on coaching staffs or alumni or, who are part of that experience. Like, I think that ties over, and just making it easy for college softball fans to continue to follow and continue to connect with those players that they love that went to their universities is huge. And I think we're there. I really do.
And for me personally, being there last year with what Odyssey Alexander did, probably one of the most dominant performances in the championship season that we've seen, and you got to see it up close and in person, documenting it, to build off of that momentum, I'm sure is something that yourself, the player committee, and all of the people who are making this happen are understanding of, okay, we're going up here. What do we need to do to continue that momentum? And it feels to me that you're not only getting up there, but you just got a rocket ship and going even faster than anticipated.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, we see the way that these college athletes and within softball just explode. And they all have very different stories, and they come from different schools. And, you think about, Odyssey Alexander's story could not be any more different than Jocelyn's, but it's so neat because they're both so embraced and so, followed in that fandom, and the way that people, look at them and care about them and want to watch their games. Like, you can't not want them to be a part of your league. And, seeing Odyssey's journey from, being this star that just exploded at the Women's College World Series, and then, stepping into AU and trying to establish herself her rookie year, and, who am I now and what does this look like? And then continuing it on through her seasons and being a champion. Like, you can't write it better than that. And so it's so neat. And I really want people to be able to hear these stories to completion, because they don't end when they graduate. The story just gets bigger and better and more complex. Like, if you tune out when they graduate, like, you miss the good stuff. I really believe that.
And I think with a lot of these players, their own paths to AUX or Athletes Unlimited, it's so vast because you got players like Jocelyn Alo, some recognized as the greatest of all time. You got a player like Odyssey Alexander, of course, you referenced her journey from James Madison. You got a player like Morgan Zirkle, who's a veteran, who's a star at Marshall. Now she's coaching her alma mater. You got Sydney McKinney, one of the greats of all time, playing in her alma mater, Wichita State for AUX. Those are just four stories that I just rattled off right there. Is there any particular story that you yourself as a reporter are looking forward to kind of showcasing to the national public that may not be as familiar with that particular setting with that individual or people?
Okay. Gosh, that's a big question. It's funny you asking that, because I'm kind of in that stage right now of looking for, the storylines and where things are going. It's funny you brought up Morgan Zirkle, because I'm talking to her tomorrow about, her journey that I wasn't super familiar with, but it kind of pieced together through her tweets and things that she said one off of, just talking about how, like, she was only pursued by one university. And it's the one that she went to, going to Marshall. And then to have this pro career. And when you look at, statistically, Morgan Zirkle within AU, like, she has done some incredible things. Like, the way that she is consistent, the way that she finds her way to the top of the leaderboard year after year, like, she's kind of that case where, she has the highlights and she has, great stat lines, but may not be the flashiest. But wow, like if you look at Morgan Zirkle's pro career, like she just gets better. And now to be a head coach and to be a head coach that plays, like that is so, so fascinating. Sydney McKinney's on my radar too. I gotta say, she really exploded when she came to AU. I have never seen somebody that is that difficult to get out ever. And, she kind of dealt with some injuries and some setbacks. And so, she kind of didn't get to carry that in the way I think maybe a lot of people thought she would going into championship season. But like she's stepping into her second year, and you see the way these pros like develop and change. And the pitching conversation is always fascinating, just the way that they evolve. We saw incredible rookie pitchers last year in Megan Veramo and Kat Sandercock. And you can't help but go, what are they going to show us in year 2? Like, what is that going to look like now that they've had some time to develop and change and settle into being a pro versus being like thrust into it in their rookie year? So I could go on. I know those are some of the ones that you mentioned, but I mean, you're definitely thinking in the right vein of like, man, these players are on to something. And I think, kind of the overarching theme that I always look for going into a season is how has this player evolved? Like, what did they learn? What did they change? Especially as a pro, because they just get so much better. Like they get so much smarter to where they're operating at levels that they weren't even close to in college because they're just getting that much more polished. And that to me is very fascinating every season to see who is capable of doing that and who's doing that at the right times. Especially when you add the layer this summer to playing for national teams. That just makes everything a little bit more, crisp and elevated and exciting because you know what they're playing for and the environments that they're in around AU. So it's going to be a big summer for softball for sure.
It's going to be probably one of the most exciting summers that I could recall. And obviously, because there's no softball in the Olympics this year with Paris, softball is going to have an opportunity to kind of start that early momentum towards Los Angeles in 2028, where softball returns back to the Olympic Games. By the way, one thing I want to make sure to point out about Cindy McKinney, very talented artist, painter, drawer.
Yes.
Make sure you do notes on that because she is a absolute savant. She's a savant with the softball bat, and she's a savant with the paintbrush and the pencil. She is phenomenal in that work. So I'm sure you'll look forward to that. For you, being involved with Athletes Unlimited for almost ever since its infancy, what have you noticed about yourself professionally in terms of your growth, along with the growth of Athletes Unlimited to where you are as a professional and where the league is right now?
Yeah, that's a great question. I definitely think about, so this will be my 5th year of covering AU softball, and then gosh, almost like my, 8th year, 9th year covering pro softball in general. And, I stepped into that space with so much to learn and was so, so embraced by the athletes within softball. And I'm always going to be super thankful and grateful to them for that. I would say for me is just because of the relationships and trust that I have with the AU athletes, in particular the softball players, that they just kind of just share with me in a way that really elevates, my game as a reporter and somebody working in the space, and it's funny how I've kind of invested in telling their stories and they've become a big part of mine. Like, I've covered Alicia Ocasio for a very long time to where, I've seen her get better over time doing interviews, and she shares some things with me about her pitching and her approach. And, just last week, like she helped me prep for doing my first game on the college level as a color analyst. I would have never thought I would have stepped in to be a color analyst for college softball. But because these players are just so, welcoming and open, like I get better, being in the dugout, game after game after game. Like if I'm listening, I'm learning at all times. And so just almost like by osmosis of being around them, I've gotten smarter and I'm seeing things that I didn't used to because I'm not an All-American. I didn't play at that level. But I study and they are the best teachers. And so I would say for me at this point in my career, I'm really trying to elevate and tell stories and set players up to showcase just how brilliant they are. You know, we're not doing anything fluff anymore. Like we're talking about the big stuff now. And, I think the part and thing that I've really developed over the past year that really speaks to that is a show called The Breakdown, where I'll have athletes on and we'll go through an entire at bat or, from a hitter's perspective or a pitcher's perspective, or, sitting down with Sis Base and Jesse Warren to talk through, how did you field this defensive play? How do you practice that? And that's the type of stuff that, I wasn't doing earlier in my career, but I do now because I know how to ask the right questions because of being around them. So really just trying to elevate things, I would say, of digging in to tell great stories and really educate fans and people within the softball world of just how smart and sharp these players are about their game.
I know we're going to talk about this more when I have you on during the summer, but that first experience with you doing color commentary was a series at USF with our good friend Ryan Urquhart on ESPN Plus. Did that experience of being in those dugouts and Athletes Unlimited ease the nervousness for you when you were on air and you were commentating and keeping track of all the action?
Yes. Yeah, totally. I mean, I just think back to at this point, like how many softball games I have watched, like and not only, watch from a fan perspective, but been in a dugout following the storylines, following the book of how a game unfolds and kind of just having to step in with some confidence and go like, okay, I know this. Like I know this game, like I know how this works and I can talk about it in a way that, I haven't ever really done before. And so, I'm very grateful to, AU and my previous experiences that just challenged me to, do new things. And so I would have never done that without all of the learnings that I've had from AU athletes in particular through the years.
Now, before we let you go, Savanna, you got a couple of things that you wanted to share, a couple of notes that you want to have. So I will open the floor to you. So what's in the Savanna Collins notebook, so to speak, because I'm sure, as you referenced, you're building your profile, your chart of what you're going to be looking for throughout this summer. So give the fans just a couple little nuggets that you are looking forward to or we're going to be looking forward to this summer at AUX.
Yeah, it's funny. I kind of got this note going in my phone of all the things that I'm kind of looking forward to right now. The first being AUX, we talked about it at length, Welcome Stadium in Wichita State starts June 10th, all 18 games you can watch on TV. Between now and then, there are going to be some new players announced that are really exciting, as well as returning players. It's going to fill out that roster to be ultra competitive. Then we're going to take a little bit of a break, and in that break we're all going out to Oklahoma City for an AU squad assembled from that 60 of the championship roster who's going to face the Oklahoma City Spark and play them in a 2-game series on July 12th and 13th. And then we're going to come back at the end of the month and go to Rosemont, for this championship season. And when I think about this season, I'm just really excited. This is a marquee year, like year 5, like that is established. Year 5, like we're almost to the second hand when it comes to counting out how
we're on the thumb or on the little finger, depending on which way you count your fives.
Yeah, and so I'm just pumped about that, just where this, league is going and where pro softball is going, and just seeing how competitive last summer was. I'm of the mind where I really like a good pitcher's duel. I know some people, like a home run derby, but I love a good pitcher's duel. And seeing how that in AU has elevated year to year, the staff that these teams put together and the strategy. And here's kind of where we're at, and here's why I'm excited, and I'll end it on this. I think before we, we're playing softball within the AU system, which has been so fun. Last year, with Odyssey in particular, really understood how to play great softball and then how to play great AU softball and use that leaderboard and use that scoring system and create teams that win so many games that you can't catch her. And so seeing how these players can embrace both at the same time and win and compete and have to dog fight for those medalist spots is so, so exciting. And so, year 5, I think, is going to be a good one. Stay tuned in between, now and AUX and throughout the summer, because it's only good news and good things coming from here on.
And she did tease earlier, folks, that more signings are coming. So go to auprosports.com. Also go to follow AU Pro Sports on all forms of social media to find out where those players are going to be signing. Oh, by the way, Savanna, I heard from my sources you got a website as well where fans can check out some of your professional work, which I did check out before the interview. Phenomenal work, as always, my dear. So what website can the fans find you on?
Yeah, just SavannaCollins.com. That's me. I just throw some of my recent stuff, some of my good, writings and interviews, and, some outside AU things that I do too, like calling those softball games. So, I'm not used to that. I'm, so see things as a fan of the players and a fan of the league. I'm like, are people fans of me? Like, that's weird. But I appreciate that. Thank you.
Savanna, the fandom for you is only going to grow, my dear, just like the fandom for AUX and the fandom for Athletes Unlimited. So, newsflash, it's only going to go up from here, my dear. Savanna Collins, ladies and gentlemen, on this In the Circle YouTube exclusive. You know where you can find her. We will be chatting during the summer. Trust us, Savanna. Thank you again.
Thank you.